Queerbaiting. Have you ever heard of this term, queerbaiting?
If you live this life every day, it doesn't mean you're going to portray it better than an actor could do it, because the actor's going to delve into it, do the research, and try to be the best representation.
Jamie Foxx, he played Ray Charles, and he's not blind, and he's not old.
That's not the same.
It is the same. It's the same.
When media capitalizes on clout as a way of giving representation, that is not representation. In real time was my relationships became really driven by people pleasing and really driven by the desire to fit in.
Welcome, guys. Okay, so we have a great show for you guys lined up. We're going to be talking more about recovery. I feel like, recovering and things like that with substance abuse. It's very important. I have a friend of mine who's now a therapist. We met years ago in our heyday in our 20s in New York City. He's now a therapist, and he's been sober for 4 years. So we're going to talk to my friend Ben Goldman pretty soon after that. But first, I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about, queerbaiting. Have you ever heard of this term, queerbaiting?
Well, according to the dictionary, the term queerbaiting refers to the practice of implying non-heterosexual relationships or attraction. In a TV show, for example, to engage or attract an LGBTQ audience or otherwise generate interest without ever actually depicting such relationships or sexual interactions. So, to briefly round up in layman's terms, it's misleading people into thinking you're gay, just so actual gay people will be more likely to buy whatever you're selling.
So my question is it's harmful? Because we have people like, they're calling out Ariana Grande, they're calling out Harry Styles for how he's dressing and things like that in non-conforming gender. So my question to you guys is this harmful to our community? Because as I saw Netflix star Kit Connor, who's on that Heartstopper show, he felt that he was forced to come out. So is this marketing technique, is it harmful to our community, or is it just marketing? I'm going to ask Alicia first, and then I'm going to go to Ivan.
Probably a good choice.
As you can see with my look right now, I feel like it's a marketing thing. Anyone that works in entertainment knows that marketing is an important thing, and sometimes you have to play a character. And when they have these shows where people are playing a gay character, I personally don't have a problem with it if you're straight. If you do it well and it's seamless, I don't see an issue with it. A lot of people will compare it to being black, being etc., and having someone white play a black person, and I don't know. I'm on the fence with that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Ivan.
Well, I'm going to knock your fence down, okay?
The question was, you didn't answer the question. Is it harmful to the community?
I don't think it's harmful. I truly don't think it's harmful at all. I just think that it's something, it's television. That's show business.
I don't think it's harmful. I think it's the people that have the perception of it being harmful that's harmful, okay? Bottom line, you advertise and market to black, white, Asian, Chinese, gay, straight, whatever. It's marketing. Now, in the same respect, if you have that expectation of, ooh, Zena's going to kiss this girl and become her girlfriend, that's your expectation. Was it written that way? Or was it just make you think it was going to happen, so you kind of bit into it, which is, of course, the baiting part, as opposed to just watching it for what it was? I mean, how about a straight person playing a gay person? Or how about a gay person playing a straight person? What a concept. So my thing is, we all have brains. Weigh it out for yourself. It's all about money. It's all about marketing. And if you feel it's a certain way, don't support the product. But if you don't really give a flying... Well, okay. I'm a little passionate here. Because I like people to use their brains and think. Nobody's forcing you to do anything you don't want to do. So just like music, you don't like it, turn it off. TV show, you don't like it, turn it off. Advertising, if you think they're doing something that's harmful, don't support them. But for me personally, I think it's genius marketing no matter how you do it. Like when cigarettes came out, they were called Sterlings or something like that, marketing towards the black community, okay? Guess who bought them all? The black folks. People. When I was born in Philly, Salem's, okay, menthol cigarettes. Of course, black folks smoke menthol. But here we are in North Philadelphia in the hood, and I'm seeing a picture of black folks in the snow with skis. No, it doesn't happen in Philly. I mean, I'm just saying in general. If you're up here in the hood, why are you going to look at black folks here with a snow backdrop and skis?
All right, so you're saying
marketing.
It's not
marketing.
harmful.
I don't think it's harmful. I think people make it harmful and project that and then keep it going to create an issue.
I have to say, I'm gonna be devil's advocate because I have to be, right? We got to get a little into it.
I got my water
I
ready.
think it...
I'm going to put that fire out.
Well, no, I think it could be harmful. Especially if it's like it's not like it's an insinuation, right? You're hinting at, and it's not like you can't say that these people aren't doing it. Like I've seen a scene between two characters on the show Supernatural, Dean and the Angel Castiel.
Okay.
There's one thing saying that you're a friend with somebody, but there's a little close. There's
Then
some
you're a friend.
certain part, right? So I mean, but then you never really bring that queerness out. But also as well, without doing that, you're not accepting everything that comes with being in our community. It ain't just like the lights and the glam, because like that's what they were talking about with Harry Styles, because he wasn't really like he will do the flag and everything like that, but is he really facing what we face, the discrimination that we face? I think Kevin Conroy, the voice actor for Batman, he's gay. I didn't know that, but he did say that he kept who he was to himself because of the discrimination. So I think that it could be harmful, especially like we were going to talk about straight actors playing gay roles. Like we have Brendan Fraser in The Whale. I know some big gay actors who could have played that same role and be more authentic. So we're living in like society of being more authentic.
But would
it kind
they
of
have been
begs the
really?
question.
Would they have been really? Just because they lived that? We have an actor. We're talking actors.
If you're a good
So
actor.
if you're a good actor, you could be the best of whatever. So if you take a
But
person
I
who's
think
living
that
that,
we
though,
also sometimes we kind of like we don't really, when we talk about acting, you're not becoming a different person. You're playing something
playing a role.
You're playing a role. So like I'm talking about being more authentic. So something that we haven't seen before, right? Like not like we haven't seen gay actors play gay roles, right? But let's talk about like Brokeback Mountain and what happened in that story. How one of them got killed, and especially what was happening back in the 70s. So that's what was going on. I think it would be a lot more authentic to have a gay actor to play that role, because you also have that fear. It's not just about acting. It's about everything. Acting is not just about me saying lines and looking good. It's about the psychology of what reading behind the lines. That's just my thing. But but acting is a little bit more than just if I can play a role. There's also the authenticity.
it's becoming the actual character. It's like a
Right.
drag queen.
Like,
It's like a
or
drag queen.
Jamie Foxx, he played Ray Charles, and he's not blind, and he's not old.
That's not
True.
the same.
It is the same. It's the same
Well, that's
thing.
what I'm saying, though. Being your authentic, if you live this life every day, it doesn't mean you're going to portray it better than an actor can do it, because the actor's going to delve into it, do the research, and
But
try to
there
be the
are
best
gay actors,
representation.
so that's almost like this. That's almost a conversation of like you have, when they were black-facing black people, or even when they were doing the westerns when they had like Native Americans and they were painting white people as Native Americans. Now, like that's not.
There was a
That's
shortage.
a different. No.
Or
It was-
Keke Palmer, she played
it was
a lesbian stud.
Well, Keke Palmer, she
And-
has been saying that she's kind of like on that verge of like, is
So-
she gonna come out? So the question is,
But if she didn't admit, you
That
must
was
have quit.
stud fishing.
If she didn't admit, you must have
Is
quit.
she? Okay, because like she's kind of like saying, she's kind of been going on her social media alluding to that she's gay, so that's almost like queerbaiting as well. Is that so? When is it bad?
insinuation
So
or
my question is,
expectation?
Right.
when is it bad and when is it like? Because you can be just a really good ally, right? That's something I read in the article too. You can be a really good ally, or you're
The fake ally.
you're just using it. You're just using it to make money,
Right.
You know what I mean? And we don't like that when people do it to us.
It goes
So
both
then
ways.
should the gay community accept that?
No one should accept it, but it's part of life. You have to
Part
use
of
your
life.
brain again and figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
I agree.
Otherwise, they're sheeple.
I mean,
And they
acting
just
is
follow.
acting. It's all about, can you portray the character accurately? I mean, that person could do the research that's needed, etc. Keke Palmer, like I said, she was in a movie. She played a lesbian stud, and she played that character. Now, is she a lesbian in real life? Who knows? I don't
Yeah.
know. But she did that. So you know what? If you do the adequate research, then play that character.
The actors who
But,
play drugged out.
but like I said,
drugged out
like
drug
if
fiend.
you're saying that, then we can't get mad when we hire a white person playing someone who's from Hawaii, because if we did the adequate research, but then it's like then we were gonna cry representation, then you can't cry that at the same time. You can't have it both ways. But we ran out of time, unless you got something to say before we go.
No, I'm just gonna say, if you have an actor who's playing a drugged out person, would you rather have the authentic drugged out person try to remember lines and everything else, or would you
how
rather
many
have the
actors
person?
have how
Halle
many,
Berry.
how many actors who have like drug problems?
Right, but I'm saying
Or
though, do you
who
want
came
an
from what?
authentic drug head,
Was it
or do you want somebody
Samuel
playing the
L.
part of the
Jackson?
drug head
But
to get the point
having
across?
a drug problem is not living a lifestyle of being a gay man or a transgender man, because that's not something. Usually, when you have a drug problem, you can probably overcome it. But me being a lesbian or gay or bi or trans, that's not something you can overcome. That's something you live. All right, we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, this is Dave Borma with Tampa Bay Gay. Check out a few of the LGBTQ events happening around the Bay Area this week.
Zoe's is officially open in St. Pete. Go out and show some support for this new business. This is truly a place for everyone. Sundays are for brunch, so grab your friends and head on down for some Southern comfort food with a modern twist. Sunday, November 20th, Board Secretary Sunny Hall has selected this month's A-list film, For the Bible Tells Me So. This is an in-person only event at the Greenlight Cinema in St. Pete. Tickets are on sale now. Here's a small clip from that
For a
trailer.
long time, the Bible has been misused to support prejudice, apartheid, segregation, slavery, the second-class citizenship of women. Now it's being misused to condemn gay people. It's an old trick. Fundamentalist Christians have been using it throughout the ages, and now they're doing it again.
During the holidays, some of our local LGBTQ+ family goes without the traditional family gathering. Found Family Collective, a local grassroots organization, is launching its annual Found Family Feast. All are welcome November 24th, starting at 2. If you can't make it out and want to show your support, you can donate directly to their GoFundMe page. This week, St. Pete Pride announced the Red and Green Party host will be Emmy Award winner Jay Rodriguez. The fundraising event is December 3rd at Sunken Gardens. Tickets are on sale now. November is Trans Awareness Month, and we share a day of remembrance on November 20th. Thank you for watching. Find this and more information at tampabaygay.com.
We want to talk about recovery and sobriety because that's very important to me, and it helps everyone to talk about that. So here with us today is a really good friend of mine from New York City. He has been sober for 4 years. Please welcome to our panel. We have Ben Goldman.
Hey Ben.
Hello.
Ben's in the house.
Did I mention Ben's a therapist?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. I got that out. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we need some therapy up
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for having me on the show, Sean, and happy to be here.
Thank you so much for making time, and thank you for being here. We had a conversation on the phone. I'm really excited to get into this. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lead out the first. What was that? I'm sorry.
It's at me as well.
All right. So I'm going to lead out the first question. I'm sorry about that. All right, Ben. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and when did substance abuse become a problem for you?
I'm so glad that we have this space to talk about this topic on the show, and I think it's so important. So like you said, thanks for bringing up this topic. My relationship with substance abuse, it really kind of kicked off in my late teens, early 20s, and the idea of when something becomes a problem and when it became a problem for me is kind of hard to put its finger on, because it really was such a sneaky process. It was something that really snuck up on me in such a surprising way. I think that learning how to use as a way of suppressing and coping was kind of my MO. But I didn't really think of it that way, because I thought about it as so fun and connection oriented. And that's what I thought I was really trying to do, is just seek connection. But then I was wondering perpetually why I wasn't getting the connection I was seeking. So around, when I was 21, I started really having to question and grapple with the consequences of my drinking and drug history. And that's when I kind of knew that it was really, really becoming a problem.
And speaking of consequences, that kind of leads into the next question. Ivan, you have the next one.
Well, it's a good segue. And again, thank you for being here with us. It's a great topic. So how were your relationships affected?
That's a great question, and I think that the idea of relationships that I just mentioned, connection, was so important to me. I was new to New York City. I just graduated undergrad, and I had this idyllic image of what it meant to be a young gay person in New York. I thought you just walked in, you had a clique that would kind of fall into V formation behind you. They were your besties. You would go to Fire Island with them. You would go to parties together, and then the next thing you know, you'd all be best friends and growing old together. At some point, you'd find a boyfriend or a husband. So I had this idyllic image of connection, but I think what actually was happening was in real time was my relationships became really driven by people pleasing and really driven by the desire to fit in. And all of the work that I feel like I did in my coming out process in my teenage years around authenticity, I felt like was kind of thrown out the window because I thought that I had this like ticket to connection through drinking and doing drugs. And so my relationships were impacted in the way that relationships are impacted by people pleasing, lack of authenticity, making promises that I couldn't keep, trying to show up for people earnestly, but prioritizing my drinking and my using as the way of being able to connect with people. So the connections were, I made some great connections with people, some people that I'm still very close with, but there was definitely a lot of moments where I was deprioritizing myself and my own growth, putting my professional development to the back burner, putting my mental health to the back burner in the interest of just being present for people. So that's kind of my story in terms of like the consequences in that regard. I think one more thing I will say is like consequences also kind of just looked like inability for me to like hold a job, inability for me to.
We'll get more to that.
That's
we'll
going
get
into
more
my
to
next
that,
question.
but yeah, that's his next
That's
question.
going into my next question. So, with all that's going on, and you realize, you're going down this slippery slope, what did rock bottom look like for you?
Yeah, no, that is a perfect segue question. And the whole idea of a rock bottom, like I think, is often shrouded in this idea of you're homeless on the streets and you're begging for money and you're jumping the turnstiles of the subway. And certainly rock bottom looks like that for some people. But I think for me, I had a really intense emotional rock bottom where, like I said, like I thought I was doing all the right things, right? And I remember waking up in the morning on like a Monday morning at like 9 a.m. and I didn't have a job and I didn't have like a place to go and the party was over, and having this sensation of, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what direction that I'm heading. And it brought on a really heavy wave of depression where I felt like a really strong lack of purpose. And with like a lack of purpose really came like a really painful experience of undermining my self-worth. And that's where rock bottom really took me.
So on that note there then, just out of curiosity, were there any particular factors that led to this whole abuse situation? Was there a bad relationship? Was there trauma? Was there a trigger that caused it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that this is something that people, now as a clinician and having kind of like the more psychological background as well as the recovery background, I really tend to see substance use and abuse as a symptom and less of the problem itself. People can use substances in a really helpful and productive way for their lifestyle and for their goals. So I don't think that I can really point to say this made me drink or this made me do drugs, right? But I think that this desire to fit in, this desire to be part of, this desire to be connected to others was just the center of my world, right? And like, sure, like were there particular like experiences growing up that I had that made me want to find community? Sure, right? Were there experiences of isolation and loneliness I had throughout my teenage years or in college that like made me want to find community? Sure, right? But at the end of the day, like alcohol and drug abuse as the symptom, and the problem being my loneliness, the problem being my isolation, my self-sabotaging, is kind of how I like to think about my relationship with my addiction and recovery.
Awesome.
I'm about to cry. I laughed earlier, Ben, because jumping over the turnstile at the subway, my team, right there.
Right?
Like hearing you share that, like literally, I just saw myself. Thank you so much for that, Alicia. I'm sorry.
I mean, me too. To be honest, like it was like sometimes, especially as the time goes on, like I have this glamorous idea of like what it was like when I was drinking and doing drugs, because like I don't know, I'll have like pictures on my phone of me like being, blackout wasted at like a fun party, because sometimes it was fun, right? But then those times where I was like, oh, I don't have a job, and I'm like eating dollar pizza, and I'm like, you know, jumping at the turnstile or whatever. Like that's like messy and like not cute.
Jump right in there, Alicia. I'm sorry.
All right. What was the light bulb moment behind giving up the abuse?
Sure. I think that I think this is kind of a good summary of everything that I've said so far. The opposite of addiction is connection. And once I began to realize that like I had to take drastic measures and try things really uncomfortable in order to find connection, that was the light bulb moment. There wasn't a moment that I was sitting under a stairwell or under a bridge or whatever, and suddenly it occurred to me like, oh, I should probably get my fucking life together. I knew I had to get my life together. Like that was ever present in my mind. I was like, I have to get it together. I have to get it together. I think it really boiled down to this frustration tolerance issue where I ultimately was able to say to myself, oh, wait, like there are tools, like there are people, there are meetings, there are people you can reach out to. There are people who have experience around the same experience as you. And they can start teaching you about connection and community. They can start being those building blocks for you. And I joke with my one friend who I got sober with, and I said, I went to my first AA meeting, and said, yeah, like, getting sober, it's not really actually about being sober. It's just about empowerment. And I laugh at that because, in fact, for my personal recovery, getting sober is definitely about being sober. But the empowerment piece and being able to build community and like find connection and ultimately validation in myself was like really, really pivotal for staying sober and doing the work to stay sober.
Also, how has your life changed personally and professionally?
Totally. Yeah, I think getting sober at a relatively young age, there was a lot of, I was growing and developing. So I went from not having a professional path to finding one, which I certainly attribute to my sobriety, but I also know is just a part of like my maturing process. I guess I would summarize by saying that getting sober helps me mature faster, right? At a much faster pace. And if you look at the queer community, especially, there is a reason that there is sometimes considered a second puberty for queer adults.
Right.
We don't have the chance to go through a traditional puberty as queer people in our teenage years. And so sometimes, especially through the lens of substance use and abuse, we will go through this period of like trying to replicate these experiences that we didn't get to have as a trauma response, as like vying for community. And so I think for me, the great benefit for me getting sober and how it majorly improved my life, yes, like, my bank account isn't in the red anymore. Like, yes, like, I have a credit card. Like, yes, I have a job. But it's like the speed of things. And I think it's the ability for my mind to wrap around complex ideas and complex scenarios and not to go into a tizzy, right? That's really the prizes, in air quotes, for me of staying sober, and that's been the biggest reward of all.
Are there any tips to stay sober? Like, what are your tips? People ask me all the time, like, how do you do it? What do you do, and what would you say to someone else who's still suffering?
Sure. My first thing I will say is there's no right way to stay sober. And this is where like my experience as a mental health professional and a person who is in recovery kind of meld together. There are so many examples of people doing recovery in different ways, whether it be harm reduction, whether it be abstinence, whether it be using substances under a doctor's prescription or a doctor's care. There's no right way to be sober. The best way to be sober is the best way that reduces the consequences in your life that aren't working for you. So ask yourself, if you're struggling with substance abuse, what are these consequences, and what would it take for me to have the tolerance to make changes in my life in order to mitigate those consequences? For me, being abstinent is the only way that I can see being able to show up for the people that I love without people pleasing, that I could see myself being as present and honest and loving towards others as I strive to be. Is it possible without abstinence? Absolutely. And I know many people who have like found recovery in various ways beyond solely abstinence. What I will say is that pushing yourself and staying in the uncomfortable space is what makes the difference between staying sober, staying in recovery or not. How long can you hold space for your own discomfort? So that would be kind of like my quick takeaway for like how you can stay sober.
Great point.
I almost cried. I almost did. So we're out of time, Ben. I just wanted to thank you so much for being here with us and talking and sharing your story with us. So if I wanted to find you, because you're doing work in New York City, how can I find you on social media?
Totally. My Instagram page is at Benjamin J. Goldman. And my TikTok page is also at Benjamin J. Goldman. Yeah, if you have any questions about sobriety, recovery, my DMs are open. If you are looking for mental health referrals, I am a mental health therapist. While social media is different than reaching out for professional help, I do try to like fuel my page with information and tips on mental health, sobriety, and other topics and tools close to my heart.
Awesome. All right. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, Ben Goldman, for being with us. Here's a message from our sponsors. Follow our podcast page, Comic Jersey TV, here on Facebook and YouTube for more conversations on love, sex, relationships, and commentary on the latest trending news. And listen to us on multiple podcast platforms via comicjerseytv.buzzsprout.com. Okay, so since we can't get enough of hot topics, I wanted to add Ben in on this. And we were talking about queerbaiting earlier. So I kind of want to give Ben the floor. Ben, really fast, do you think is queerbaiting harmful to the community?
It's a great question. I'm glad we're talking about queerbaiting. I think it's a term that is kind of thrown around. First of all, the first thing I'll say is we love a buzzword in our culture these days, don't we? We love a buzzword. And you know what else who loves you know who else loves a buzzword? People who want to hurt us, right? People love to weaponize our language against us. And so I think that sometimes we get too caught up in like the terms, and we don't actually get caught up, we don't really pay attention to like the consequences as much. The reality is queer people need media representation, right? In addition, separately, people are going through their own relationships with their identities, right? Now, when media capitalizes on clout as a way of giving representation, that is not representation, right? However, right, being careful around the use of the word queerbaiting, I think, is helpful because we don't know what other people are going through in their personal identity struggles, right? When we say queerbaiting, I think that some of the danger with it is that we're throwing an attack on someone who may or may not be going through their own identity process. Now, what we can say, I mean, you could say whatever you want, to be clear, but what I would say is I would try to stay on the side of, listen, I don't feel represented by this depiction. I don't feel represented by this actor or performer. I don't feel represented by this person. And like, I want to continue to see nuanced representation of queerness in media, right? So that's kind of my hot take on the hot topic.
Okay. Do you guys want to say anything?
Happy to continue. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's a personal situation. I mean, as far as representation. So for some people, like Pride, they want to see the drag queens and the guys walking around with unicorn hip horns on and tutus and butts hanging out and everything else. That may represent some people, but not other people. And people have talked about the representation. It's like what you consider your representation is up to you, is what you want. So
one thing on that's kind of interesting is like I actually was talking to a friend about recently is Something that's not represented that I think that can be is like media loves like a trope. They love like, oh, like your family doesn't accept you. You go home for the holidays and now your family accepts you. Woohoo! What we don't see in media is like what happens like when your family doesn't accept you, you don't go home for the holidays, and then you feel amazing because you're with your chosen family and community of people who you love that you've created community with, right? Or like you have like a mixed emotion experience, you know?
It's not
It's
hype.
good TV.
There's no hype. It's boring.
What
They
did
went to dramatic stuff. That's what the problem is.
And what did you want to say?
I'm still on the fence. I am still on the fence. I mean, I really don't know how to feel about it at this point. I'm on the fence about it because representation is important, but yet, like I said, in situations like Jamie Foxx playing a blind character, should we be angry about that?
But
I
that's
think.
not the same. That's not the
But
same.
if you're
thing,
looking
though.
for a fight, you're gonna find one.
Yeah, I can get that because it's
Well, you
almost
know
like what he
You know
said.
what? I know a therapist you can talk to about this.
Because I mean, yeah, right here. Because that's not the same thing though. Because it's like it's almost like okay, not everyone's blind, and we should find someone that was blind to be able to play that role. But not every blind man can play the piano, like or how Ray Charles was, or he's even Black. So that representation, if we're going to talk about representation, we're talking about education. So we go into like the whole history of America as to why he was the only person that was able to do the Stevie Wonder. But Stevie Wonder's old.
What?
But at the same time, I just find that argument that's not the same thing. Because then,
But see, that's
like
your
literally,
position. That's your opinion.
But what
on
about
that.
white characters that have played Black characters? It was
that's
definitely
blackface, and we're gonna.
It is, but it's still. Who was
what
that
about
character?
what about the blind people who wanted to be Ray Charles in that movie? Just like
Right.
Brandon
Finish your
Fraser
point.
wanted to be, he
Yeah.
wasn't the gay guy, wanted a fat gay guy to do it. Why not have a blind guy do it? It's the same argument.
It's the same argument, and I can't remember who that character was, but he played a Black character. I want to say Tom Cruise, but I'm not sure. But either way, I mean,
I
could
can
they
see Tom
not
Cruise
find
doing
any
that.
Black actors in Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, because it's almost like a conversation. Because if we're going to talk about 20 years ago, I mean, the only Black actors you would see is like Wesley Snipes. You'll always see Denzel Washington. So I mean, like we're always crying for representation. Where I don't want to get, I agree with we are almost out of time. I agree with Ben with saying that sometimes we find a buzzword and we want to trope and everything like that. But like I can't get behind saying like, oh, that's like, finding a blind guy to play, Ray Charles. It's not the same thing as being like a Black person nor a gay person. Because like he just said earlier, it's all about, growing up with the like, it's not the same. It's
Unless you're that blind person.
It's not the same. We're not, I mean, it's a nice analogy, but I don't think it's the same because it's like
Understandable.
being gay is like, to me, you don't just become gay, you can become blind, but I'm not trying to say that, but
So
I see another topic.
I think it's a nice argument, but at the same time, it's like a white actor playing a black character. Yeah, I'll get pissed because why couldn't we get like will we have the same type of movie like Black Panther if someone that wasn't Black playing the Black Panther, because Stan Lee, a white man, created that character. So is he, you know what I mean? So
Well, then on that note, let me ask you this. We're running out of time here, but why is every Black sitcom created by Jewish people?
Well,
Think about it. Norman Lear.
Well, the fact that they even
because they related to it and they did it very well.
They related to it, but the fact that they even made that
Even though he stole
media.
it.
No, I ain't stole it.
No, he stole it. Norman Lear, he stole those shows from a Black man, but that's a whole.
Well, no,
other story.
understandable, but not only Norman Lear. There's a lot of shows out there that were actually created by other.
Yeah, people that were
ethnicities.
in the room. So that's like a different. We're not in the same timeline right now. Now we're talking about representation. We have gay, Black, white, Asian out there. So you're telling me you couldn't find anyone. Like if somebody else played Shang-Chi that wasn't Asian, they'd be fucking pissed too. So, but even we ran out of time.
Next topic.
Yeah,
next
topic.
topic.
Thank
We
you.
got this.
to continue, guys, but I'm gonna jump
He's
off.
got to go.
Thank you guys so much for having me again.
Well, thanks
I
for
really,
being
really,
here.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here, Ben. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
And also, I wanted to thank our sponsors as well. I wanted to thank Tampa Bay Gay. I wanted to thank PJ over here at Bold. Yeah.
True snaps
We had
up in the bowl.
We're at the event space at Bold. And if you guys want to have an event and you're in Ybor City, please check out boldtampabay.com. Thank you to our audience. And like I always like to say, always have a little bit more common courtesy.
See ya.
Follow our podcast page, Common Courtesy TV, here on Facebook and YouTube for more conversations on love, sex, relationships, and commentary on the latest trending news. And listen to us on multiple podcast platforms via commoncourtesytv.buzzsprout.com.